This is the review of the 2025 GMC Terrain. GMC recently redesigned its compact Terrain SUV to bring its styling more in line with the full-sized Yukon and mid-sized Acadia SUVs. The Terrain is very similar to its twin, the Chevrolet Equinox, which we've also tested. It's certainly an improvement over its predecessor, but isn't good enough to compete fender to fender in this crowded segment. Certainly the Terrain has its work cut out for it, as it's competing against the Honda CR-V, Subaru Forester, and Toyota RAV4, just to name a few. You can go to consumerreports.org and check out our comparison tool to see just how the Terrain matches up. We bought an all-wheel drive Elevation trim, which starts at $32,000. We added the Elevation Premium package, which includes an 8-way power driver's seat, dual-zone automatic climate control, a wireless charger, and 19-inch wheels, among other items. We also got the Convenience Package 3, which brings power adjustments for the passenger seat, including 2-way lumbar, as well as heated and ventilated front seats. With a special ebony twilight metallic paint and the $1,395 destination charge, the total came to $37,540. The final assembly point for the Terrain is in San Luis Potosi, Mexico. So the Terrain is styled very similarly to the last model. You can see the big prominent grille here, kind of traditional GMC kind of looking headlights, very blocky. And going along the sides, these fender flares are very prominent. And we also noticed that how the rear windows kind of come up in a curve, sort of like a Coke bottle type shape. It's really not that different than most SUVs out there, which, could be good or bad depending on your perspective, but really, it looks like any other SUV. So one of the reasons why SUVs are so popular is they're generally easy to get into, and for the GMC Terrain, that's certainly the case. You can see that the seats are about at hip level, so it's really easy to slide in. There's not a big hike up or anything, so we would give these, pretty good scores for access to the front seats. And getting into the back is similar. We wish the doors would open a little bit wider, so that might pinch you a bit. But again, the seats are at a good height and there's plenty of floor space. The sills aren't too wide, so access is also pretty easy for the back seat as well. So the Acadia's front seats aren't too bad. The side bolstering is enough to kind of keep you in place, both on the cushion and the backrest as well. The cushion itself is a little short. Some of us would like a little bit more thigh support. And a few of the drivers that I work with here at Consumer Reports Auto Test Center complained that the backrest was a little bit lumpy. But all in all, this is a very livable seat. As far as rear seat passengers go in the Acadia, you're going to find that there's actually a lot of room back here. There's lots of foot space, lots of leg space. There's not a lot of support for your thighs under the seat cushion, and you're certainly not as elevated as you feel in the front. This isn't what we call stadium seating, where the second row passengers really get to sit up and see what's going on out there. But there is a decent amount of headroom. I'm about 5'10", plenty of space for me. So we're going to guess that most of your rear seat passengers are going to be pretty happy back here. So we bought the base Elevation trim, and normally you think, well, it's the base model, so it's probably pretty lousy. But what we've got here is lots of nice little touches. For example, on the door panel here, you've got kind of this wood or carbon-like trim. There's a bit of sort of muted chrome, lots of exposed stitching. The wrap on the steering wheel feels really nice. It also has some stitching and some chrome bits here and there. The top of the dash is kind of hard. Well, there's semi-soft touch surfaces on the top of the dash, so that's nice. More exposed stitching, more chrome and wood-like trim. It's not bad, but we're not sure it's $37,000 worth. One of the aspects of the Terrain's fit and finish that I was not impressed with is this center armrest here. I do like that there's padding, but you can see how it's flexing when I push it down. You think, well, maybe it's not latched properly. It is latched properly, but you see how it has this gap in between when it's closed and you put your elbow down it and it moves every time? I think that's lousy. So day-to-day livability with the Terrain, as you're driving, you're always putting stuff in the center console, whether it's keys, wallet, whatnot. You're checking out the cup holders. So for the Terrain, there is a rubber-lined open bin here, which is a really nice spot to put stuff like your phone. The cup holders have these little rubber things on the side to keep your cups in place. The door pockets are pretty generous, pretty deep and wide, and this bin under here also has a lot of space inside. However, it's so deep that you might get lost digging things out of there. But really, the space here is really useful. It also has, a lot of the car makers these days are putting bins underneath the center console. You call it a flying center console or whatever. So it goes way down here. And the thing is, it's really hard to access, and it's not all that big. So you might not fit a pocketbook or your lunch or whatnot. I guess it's handy to have, but it's really not easy to get to. You also get a very handy rubber-lined wireless phone charger here in the center console. So the glove box is nicely damped, but it's unlined. But at this price point, that's not entirely unusual. We like to see the damping mechanism of the glove box, but it would be nice to have some felt or something like that inside. Normally we'd be throwing a party because we have a manual rotary volume knob. However, this one is pretty flush with the screen, so it's not always easy to find and grasp. We're also kind of annoyed with GM's design for the left steering wheel stalk. It's combining lots of things. You've got the turn signals, but you've got also the wiper controls as well. You have the rear wipers as well as the front wipers. And I know when I was driving this to prepare for this video, I accidentally did a big swipe on the rear wiper when all I wanted to do was one single swipe in the front windshield. So that design we're not crazy about. Now, you'll also notice on the steering wheel that you have these really handy paddle shifters right here. Normally, you would use this when you're driving around the mountains, say in Vermont, New Hampshire, whatnot, and you want to use low-range gearing, which is great. You're using engine braking to take it easy on your brakes. You're doing what the engine and transmission are designed to do, and that's slow you down without riding your brakes. However, with GM these days, and especially with the Terrain, you first have to hit this little button on the steering wheel that says L. That engages low drive. Now, in almost every other vehicle, if you look at the paddle shifters and you see the negative button, you hit that, and that slows you down going down the hill. We don't know why GM insists on making you go through an extra step to use low-range gearing in the Terrain. So the 15-inch center infotainment screen is a portrait orientation. That means it goes more up and down as opposed to side to side. So you'd think that you'd go into the settings menu to adjust the tone quality of your music, and you have this little button here that says sounds, but that is not the case. That's not where you go to adjust the treble or the bass. You have to go into the vehicle settings to get to the audio, so you can adjust the bass or the treble. That is not intuitive at all. So once you've got your audio system worked out, we're pleased to see that at least wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay comes standard, which is not always the case with every car out there. So the elevation trim comes standard with heated seats and a heated steering wheel. We also got the optional package that included a dual zone automatic system, as well as ventilated front seats and heated rear seats. That's a lot of climate content for $37,000. We're not crazy about how you go into the center touchscreen to adjust the climate system. You do have this button right here, which kind of brings up the whole climate menu, and you can fiddle with it here. You have also got some hard buttons down low, which allows you to quickly turn on the defrosters. We also think that engaging the seat heaters is absolutely ridiculous because it's a tiny button on the bottom of the screen. You have to manage to hit it just right and then decide if you're going to go for the ventilated seat or the heated seat. That is a silly design because it's so tiny, and you have to imagine that you're doing this while you're driving. But because of this orientation of the screen, it pushes most of the most frequently used climate buttons down low. But again, you do have the option of bringing up the full screen that has the climate options. The Terrain has a really useful amount of cargo space. You can see how the rear hatch opens up pretty wide. This is a very nice flat load floor. You can see that the sill is flush with the floor, so it's easy to move stuff in and out like most SUVs. You have a 60-40 split rear seat, which allows you to really expand the cargo area. Now you might think that a power liftgate is standard in the Terrain. It is not. You have to get the Elevation Premium package to get that nice little luxury feature. As we've learned from a number of you who are fans of Consumer Reports car videos, a spare tire is super important to you folks. So unfortunately, the Terrain has a temporary spare, which I suppose is better than nothing. But so if you're looking for a full-sized spare tire, you have to look elsewhere, or you have to buy an aftermarket one, which of course will take up more cargo space, and it will add to the overall weight of the vehicle, which could reduce your fuel economy. So this is a part of the video that's actually fun because we get to drive on part of Consumer Reports' 327-acre test facility. So the Terrain's driving position is compromised somewhat by the left footrest for the driver. It's a bit too upright and a bit too close, making some of the drivers feel sort of hemmed in. Other than that, it really isn't too bad. There's plenty of headroom here for me. I'm about 5'10", so there is decent space here. Another criticism that we had with the Terrain's driving position is with the center console. There's a spot on this console where the driver's right knee touches, and there's some of this ornamental stitching that we talked about when we talk about the Terrain's fit and finish. But if you're wearing, say, short pants, it can rub uncomfortably on your leg, and the video people don't want me to wear short pants when I'm doing these videos, so it's going to be harder for me to explain it. But you get the idea that there is some center console intrusion. Visibility out of the Terrain also has its issues, starting with the front pillars. We refer to these as the A pillars, but they're pretty thick, especially at the base. And as is the case with a lot of SUVs, especially compact SUVs, there's a lot of rear visibility intrusions to the rear 3/4. So while we appreciate that we do have blind spot warning, visibility out of the Terrain is not awesome. When it comes to making the Terrain go, all trim lines get a 175 horsepower, 1.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. The front-wheel drive models are hooked up with a continuously variable transmission. The all-wheel drive trims, which is what we have, get an 8-speed automatic. Mostly this powertrain works pretty well together. Some turbocharged engines can have a little bit of a delay when it comes to jumping off the line, also called turbo lag. It's really not the case here. The issue that we have with this little engine is there's not a lot of power in reserve. So when you want to go speed up, try to pass somebody, there's not a lot of oomph there. It usually gets the job done. But if you're going to be passing somebody on a tighter 2-lane road, then you really got to plan this out ahead of time. It's not an unpleasant powertrain, but certainly could use a little bit more horsepower. In terms of noise isolation, the Terrain is pretty quiet. You might hear the 4-cylinder engine working hard if you're especially like putting your foot into it and asking it to produce a bit more power, but road noise and wind noise are fairly well suppressed. So we give a thumbs up to the overall noise evaluation in the Terrain. So road tripping with the Terrain, the engine's pretty good, the noise levels are pretty quiet, and now it comes down to the ride. And this is truly one of the Terrain's high points. Only the biggest bumps kind of come in, but day to day, whether you're on side roads or cruising down the highway, the ride is very well controlled. GM did a nice job isolating passengers from the bigger bumps that the Terrain might face. So when it comes to handling, just day-to-day kind of stuff, the Terrain feels fine. It doesn't get out of sorts until you start really pushing it, which is what we get to do here at Consumer Reports Test Track. We're gonna stop short of calling it sporty. It's more, it holds on well. It is not certainly unsafe at all, but again, it's not exactly the sportiest of sport utility vehicles out there. The Terrain did well in our braking tests, both on wet and dry surfaces. Very consistent, solid stops all around. One of the biggest differences between this redesigned GMC Terrain and the last model is that the new model now comes standard with all the active safety and driver assistance features that we like to see in new cars. Some of the highlights include highway speed automatic emergency braking, blind spot warning, and rear cross traffic warning. So the redesigned Terrain is certainly better than the model it replaced. It has a pleasant powertrain, a comfortable ride, and a very roomy cabin. And as I mentioned, even the base model is very well equipped. But it's sort of boring to drive, and it doesn't offer a hybrid option, which puts it behind the best models in the compact SUV category. So that wraps up our video review of the GMC Terrain. To see the results of our testing, as well as the other results of other compact SUVs, check out consumerreports.org.